One of the most competitive pieces of real estate is the Google search box and the results it provides. Being the top for popular keywords is a difference between having a successful business and, well, not. Let's enter the world of search engine optimization, or SEO for short. To go into details of what a good SEO specialist does, what to look out for when hiring a specialist, what is SEO in the first place, and a whole lot more, I talked to one of the world's foremost experts in this area, Jenn from Mathews. This is going to be a fun one, so let's get started. Jenn, thanks again for taking the time to meet with me. I've been following your content for a long time now, and like we were mentioning before we were recording, I don't know when I started following your content, but it feels like I've always seen your helpful information on LinkedIn every time I would sign in. So thanks again for taking the time to kind of share this broadly with all of us and to talk a little bit more about yourself. And so the first question I like to ask always is, how did you get started in tech? How did you get started with SEO in your case?
Yeah, so I'm going to go back to the beginning, and this is going to kind of date myself a little bit, but I'm not interviewing, so I'm okay with it. But yeah, I grew up in the 80s, so we had one computer in the house for the entire family. My brother ended up getting his PhD in aerospace engineering, so he is the tech guru guy. And I used to tag along as he and his friend, and mostly just him, just hack at other websites. And he would be in there coding, doing cool things. He had two synthesizers set up with the computer, would do all this cool stuff. And eventually he got me a coding book. And I was an artist to begin with. So that's how it kind of translates to SEO. You got to be a little bit of left brain and you got to be a little bit of right brain. And so yeah, I was an artist. I would paint, did sculpture, did all sorts of things all through growing up, and then also having that techie influence of my brother. Translating to later in life, I got into web design and development in the late 90s and started doing it just for as a freelancer for local businesses. I learned I like a challenge, and I wanted those businesses to be like Amazon. So I learned how to, now you can create a website with WordPress or something else, and you can install a plugin like WooCommerce, and you have your shopping cart. Back then, it was not as easy. So I actually learned how to code using CGI and Perl and work with Authorize.net and work with the local banks with their merchants and their merchant accounts and how to process credit cards securely. Well, I don't know if it was very secure, but anyways, yeah, so that's where I started, is just developing websites. And I thought it was just developing websites. I didn't realize how intricate I was getting. When those websites were built, the clients were telling me that it's great that you built this for me, Jen, but nobody's coming to it. And of course they don't have any money because they're these small mom and pop shops. And so I started figuring out, how can you get free traffic to a site, and SEO was the biggest one. And it was so easy back then. You basically put in your titles, descriptions, meta tags, you put in your keywords that you felt that they should rank for, and you pretty much got rankings right away. Then it got a little more complicated, where you had to have the keyword mentioned in the page, and we were doing things like white text on white background, and then Flash came into play. So yeah, so that's where I first got influenced. I did work for my brother at his tech company, then ended up not doing well. I call it the part of the .gone era. But I learned quite a lot about web design and development. I did QA testing, anything that they were willing to let me do as an intern. I just absorbed as much as I could. And so I went from there to eventually working for a agency that did just SEO. And I thought, how cool, because that seemed to be my passion, just that challenge of trying to get rankings, especially when Google came into play and changed the game completely. And so that's how I got into it. And I started working for the agency. This was 2004, and there were only, how many do we have? Like maybe 9, 12 people in the office when we started. And they had like several hundred clients that they were trying to optimize for, anything from really small to very big clients. Some of the claim to fames is we got rankings for a client for flowers. We got a rankings for trophies, was our biggest one. Is this company out of out of Redmond. No, Issaquah. He was in Issaquah, and then he ended up opening like a second store and had 3 other websites that we optimized for him, and he grew his business considerably just from that. So, and then how I got into enterprise from there, I went from that agency in 2006 to classmates.com. If anyone's old enough remembers that. And then
I
I
remember
had
those
been,
ads all the time, those little black
oh
and
my
white ads
gosh.
that said, you might know this person. I'm like, maybe, let me click it.
Yeah. Yeah. They're still around. I think they probably would have survived if they hadn't charged, because they charged to just even view somebody's picture on their profile. Whereas, MySpace and then Facebook came in and just knocked everybody out because everything was free. Whereas Classmates was, yeah, charging for all of that. So, but there's a couple of projects I launched while I was there that are still live today. So I'm kind of proud of that they held on to them. Oh, Katie.
This is pretty cool.
Love it.
Yeah. When I'm not in the office, it's pretty much a zoo here.
Yeah. Oh, really? I am a big animal lover. So anytime I see them, I'm like, oh, yeah, totally
No,
distracted.
we just have 2 cats, and they're both very friendly. And I actually let them in the office as well.
Oh,
So he's trying to
oh,
find a spot to actually, take a nap on. So it's yeah,
oh,
and
love
we're
it.
busy. We're live here.
Love that. They always know when you're busy. Yeah. Or like
They
the people who
absolutely do.
don't like them. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
No, but this is actually really, interesting because I remember like I got into web design and development around like late 1990s as well, like, especially like the old GeoCities days and before Google, and I remember it
Yeah.
always
I
be
had a
like every
like,
search there'd be like a
yeah.
submit a site link. So it'd be like, oh, I create a new page. Let me go to submit a site. Let me type in the URL and hit submit, and then the crawler would go and be like, I think it was like Lycos, Alta Vista, Yahoo, and all these things had like a submit a site. But I'm like, this is fantastic. Google had it initially as well. Then they removed it. I'm like, wait, how am I gonna find my stuff if I can't submit the site to it? And that was like all those fun moments there. But going back to when you first started with web design, I always, because I love developer tools and design tools and things like that. What tools did you use back when you were doing your web development work?
Oh gosh. I think I'm trying to remember. My brother got me onto Front Page.
Yep.
So he actually convinced my parents. This was when I was really starting out. And I was trying to be on my own. I was a young mom, a single mom with young kids, to pull some of the personal life into it. And I had left my husband and I was trying to support myself. And my brother told my parents they needed to step in and help me get a computer. And then bought me a copy of Front Page for Christmas. And I liked the WYSIWYG part of it, but coming from coding, I think I just used like a notepad or something, or some text editor, because I had a Mac and then I went to PC, which was really tough for me to move. I
Yeah.
had a Power Mac and then to PC was so hard. But in the long run, is easier to develop. Yeah, but I know I just had like a text editor. Yeah, and then got Front Page, but I didn't like it because it threw in all that extra code.
Yeah.
But it did have a feature where you had a tab to where you could edit the code. And then what I would do is go to the WYSIWYG editor and just copy and paste so for shopping cart, when I had the products, put them in a table. That's how old this is. Like everything was in tables. And
Yep.
then I would just take that cell and copy and paste it and then just change the image and change the description and price and title. But so it made my life a little bit easier. Eventually went into Dreamweaver when it was a editor. I did use, oh my gosh, what was it? It was a home, was it? I want to
Was
say
it home site?
Homebrew.
Home
Home
site?
site, that's what I used. And
Okay, I
then
think it's like either a
Adobe
layer
bought
or I think
them.
it's like a layer or Corel did
Oh
Homestead, I
my
believe.
gosh. Yeah, you're really bringing up memories. Yeah, so I started using that. I think it was somebody when I was an intern, one of the developers recommended it. And I started because I still was doing, because I was interning like almost no pay. I think I was making like $5 an hour interning. We talk about salaries too. My first job at the agency was 30,000 a year. And then about when I went to enterprise, that was better pay. But yeah, so yeah, home site, and then and then Adobe bought them
That's right.
and rolled it into Dreamweaver. Originally, Dreamweaver was just a drag and drop, almost like a PowerPoint type of tool where you could do animations and stuff, but then it became an editing tool, like a more of a development tool. But, and then I started developing an ASP. So when I was at the agency, I developed a internal, this is really getting into it. We didn't have a customer management system. They were using files and paper files, you know, old school.
Yep.
And so I had, we had a receptionist at the front desk, and I created an Access database, and I said, plug in all this information into this database. And then I developed with ASP, not .NET, when everybody's got the WYSIWYGs now. But I developed with that, and I'm trying to remember. I think I might have used Homesite then, or maybe just a text editor. But yeah, and then we had our own internal to manage because there's so many clients and not a lot of us. So to try to manage that system and how it went. But yeah, that was my old coding days.
No, that's fantastic. I always like to do this because, I've been doing this since 1998. And a lot of the audience here, of course, is also very technical in so many ways. And so for me, like, I always love geeking out on tools because for the most part, I feel like people today just don't realize how good we had it back then in terms of the tools that we had. Because on one hand, they're like, oh, I need to create a new website. Let me now spend like, an unreasonable amount of time learning like a framework, learning a build tool, doing like, creating a new project. Like Hello World back then was literally an HTML page. You typed in Hello World. It could have been Notepad, could have been a way you get editor. And today you're still creating Hello World, but the page is like 300 kilobytes because it's a bundle there, like you're using React or I love these frameworks. Yeah. It's one of the things where if you don't know the fundamentals of how you created sites back then and like what is HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, you're missing out on so much of the kitchen sink here because you think that this is the final solution. And so I always just like to, go back and see like, yeah, things were easier. You had an FTP server, you just drag and drop a file, it would work. Whereas today it's like, do I have a cloud provider? What is my authentication profile? And it's, when people say it's so hard to build websites today, I'm like, it absolutely is. Even if I had to start today without having done what I did back then, it would be impossible. The barrier for entry and experimentation is just so high. Back then I had no idea. I used Front Page Express, came free with the browser. I had no idea what I was doing. Then I moved to the full front page and I convinced my parents to buy me front page because I wanted to be able to do frames and iframes, which I had no idea that all this HTML. Front Page Express didn't allow you to do iframes, but front page did. I'm like, oh, this is the magical tool that only a dev tool that, can provide. And that kind of like naivete helped me in many ways experiment and try things out. I feel like we're missing that today in all these tools because by the time you get Hello World up, you're already burnt out and you're like, okay, I'm done. I'm going to take a break now and, do something else. So it's always just fun to kind of go back and talk about this stuff.
Yeah, well, and I think having that background, I almost sometimes surprise myself and also appreciate my background in some cases because cut to me working at, so I worked at ADP, usedcars.com, and then so I went from Classmates to there. I worked at Nordstrom's, Groupon. GitHub was the toughest site, but I learned a lot, especially since it's developer driven, the whole thing. And there's brilliant people, developers that work there that are willing to work with you on things. So I learned a lot, but that background really helped me because when we got with ASP, we started to be able to use include files, right? And then you're dealing with databases. So the database that we had internally with all of the products and me, I would have the include file where I'd have the top and the bottom, and then would code per page and use parameters to define the page. And then we go to, Apache to where it rewrites URLs. People don't understand that that's basically what that is, right? And then there's the whole debate between subdomain versus subdirectory. And I know I used to battle with engineers over when a proxy started coming into place where you could rewrite the URL, like the entire domain, right? So I actually wrote on my own personal blog that was originally GeoCities, and I've heard SEOs have complained about my URL of my very personal blog. I can't even tell. It's like it's on Blogspot. So it was originally GeoCities, and then they turned it into blogs. And so it's like a search marketing goddess or something like that. And I've never changed it. It's always been there since the like early 2000s. But I wrote a post on there because I wrote how to do a proxy. Now it's just push button, like you're saying. Like I used to have to explain to engineers, like you can put okay, we're a .NET shop, right? We're a Windows servers, on Windows machines. Now cloud changes that a little bit, but and then the WordPress, and we have our own servers. This with like usecars.com is a prime example, right? On our own servers in the office, there was somebody who managed the servers, and then we want to have a WordPress site. They say we can't do that. Well, we want to host it somewhere else, because WordPress is not Microsoft hosted thing, right? So but we have to have a host for it, and so it's in a completely different space. And I'm like, no, you can use a proxy rewrite to have it be in a subdirectory. And they're like, no, we can't do this. And so I learned how to do it. I showed them how it could be done, and so that's why I wrote the blog post on it. And then I became actually a consultant for others that like how to be able to do. But now, like I go into a company like GitHub, they have a WordPress, although it's on a completely different domain. Maybe they're not a good example, but Nordstrom's blog is on WordPress, and they have a different system that the site's on, right? But because of proxy, you can write whatever you want. So the world, so that like where it used to be complicated, but I know the technicality of, because of the things that I've been through throughout the years. That was my point. Is that it helps me understand, and I can have those conversations with engineers and be like, I know what an include file is. I know how databases connect to the websites, and you can create millions of pages and really only be editing one, right? And then using, the rewrites to create these unique, and a lot of times they'll be like, we can't change the URLs, or we don't know, we have no control over what the URLs are. I'm like, yes, you do. You just write the URLs. You just decide what they are. And Apache's rewrites is what makes that happen. Or, now there's new ways of that technology to happen. But yeah, having that experience, and I feel for the SEOs today that are getting in that just have 2 or 3 years of experience. And a lot of them get into content and they don't have technical understanding. And then they want to get into the complex enterprise world, or they work for an agency that has enterprise clients, and the enterprise clients are frustrated because they don't understand, and the SEOs are frustrated because they don't understand. And I feel for them, which is why I try to write the content I write.
No, that is so true.
Yeah.
Because enterprises often have legacy systems that are 10, 15, 20 years old, and they just can't change it even if they wanted to because of backward compatibility. They might have customers who just aren't tech savvy enough to know that the URL has changed and things like that. But no, it's always a fun topic, because when we look at Salesforce, this will often be a common topic as well. It's like, why are the URLs the way they are? Why can we change them? Why is the page done the way these things are? It's because, the customers we have just can't, they have integrations with legacy systems that require a specific hard-coded path, and that person who might have built that system probably isn't doing that anymore, and no one knows how that is built. So it's basically just a server in some closet that everyone hopes that nothing ever happens to cause it to go offline, because at this point it's all just mystery on how it all works.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, especially Salesforce, right? Because a lot of that stuff's internal. They're pulling it in, and especially legacy. I mean, if they're newer, they're going into the cloud, so that makes it a little bit easier going forward. But those legacy clients that, they can't change.
no,
Yeah.
and sometimes I also wonder, like, if I am starting out today in, let's say, SEO or web development, and I want to learn all the things you just described, where would I even begin? Like, how would you even get started? Like, you basically have to essentially nowadays hunt for a web server that doesn't provide a full-on CMS and actually allows you to get like raw FTP access. And then you need to have like Apache server-side includes and Apache enabled, which isn't enabled by default.
Nobody even does that anymore. Yeah.
Nobody does that
I don't
anymore,
know
exactly.
if the browsers would even know what that is. So I actually did start, well, now I get to plug my little site. So I started a website called, now I forget the name of it. Is it masterseo.io? I kind of hit up every once in a while when I get time and put content up there. And I try to put as much as my knowledge as possible. The whole point of it is to those who are starting out. So just like you're saying, like how do they get started? They don't, and I don't expect, when I hire SEOs or I have interns that work for me, or I mentor a lot of SEOs that want to get into the business, I'm not a brat, and I don't say, you should learn the way I did and you should create a HTML website and know how to do all this stuff. I try to start them with the world that we have today, but also explain why things are the way they are, especially with Google. Google changes the rules all the time. If you've been in the business 20 plus years, like I have, you watch Google say you can do one thing, which you've probably seen that on the surface level. They'll say, for a long time, they said submit to directories, and here's a list of directories to submit to, right? Like you're saying, like you used to be able to submit to Google and say, go look at my website, and they took that away. Understanding why they took that away, because they became efficient, right? So they can, if a new website comes into place, same as whois.com can find that website, Google can find that website very, very efficiently. If that website's linked from another website, which is why SEOs promote link building, then they can find it even faster. And so there's no reason to do the submittal. They also have in GSC, if you can submit a URL individually, so you can go and connect your website, so they'll find it that way as well. So there's no reason to do the submittal process anymore. But there's also, so there's reasons behind, and the whole submitting to directories, right? So here's what I was getting at, is that Google will say, do this thing, and then everybody does it. And like you were saying earlier, there's a lot of bad actors, and there's more, I would say, this is not an official study, but off the cuff, and my gut feeling is like at least 90% of the people doing SEO are bad actors. And it is hard to find the ones that are legit and know what they're doing. And so because of those bad actors, everybody's submitting to directories. There's websites creating directories, scammers that are creating directories so that you can submit to them. And it became too much. And so then it became spammy and scammy, right? And so then Google's like, whoa, okay, stop. Now we don't allow anyone to do submitting directories. And then they got to a point where, because people were still doing it, it was still working, and they're like, we recommend you don't, or maybe just DMOZ and nobody else. And then it just became so bad that they're like, now we're going to penalize you for submitting to directories because y'all aren't listening to us. And that is the common, and this is the thing that I try to explain to SEOs. If you know this part of the world that we're in, right? Google will say to do this one thing. Recent example, Google said for the last several years to do your FAQs, right? Put FAQs on your page, structure data around it. You'll get a chance to get in the answer box. You can get into the people also ask. So they're good key features. It promotes win-win, right? Google gets content for those parts, and you're getting that feature page, and so that feature position. And just this year, they're now saying, we don't recommend you do FAQs anymore, right? And so this is their pattern. This is what's going to happen, is my prediction. They're going to say, we don't recommend it going forward. And then people are still going to do it because it still works, because they're still looking at it, but they don't want you to. And eventually they're going to say, we're penalizing any site that has FAQ, that's loaded with FAQs, when it doesn't make sense, right? If it's not an FAQ page and it's only FAQs, then, because that's where they're going to go. That's where they head it, because that's their pattern. And that's the part that I try to explain to SEOs. Like, you need to understand, look at what's going on, what's going to be, Google says to do this, but then what's going to get taken advantage of and what's going to be manipulated, and don't do that thing. And even though Google recommends it, just try to stay just even keel. Don't ride those waves that Google has.
Yeah.
Or don't take advantage of it, or yeah.
I think another recent example that came about in this area is I know there was like all this interest in like core web vitals and increasing your page performance and making sure the performance of your site is really high. And then I see like mixed answers where, actually we may not penalize you if your performance isn't all that great, because it turns out certain sites just cannot be performant. How true is that?
I think, they change direction all the time, So like I said, I think as far as web performance, I hate to say it depends, because I hate that SEOs use that word. But it does depend on the site. So I've seen sites that are slow that do okay. I've also seen sites that are slow and not do okay. Is it because they're slow, or is there something else that's playing into that? Now, if you've got it's bad user experience, right?
Exactly.
So when it comes to that, and there's other factors too that this test can. So this is what I use as a gauge, right? There's SEOs will say that Google can see your see the way they're interacting in your site and know the users, the bounce rate, and blah blah blah. I don't think. They can, because they have GA, and I'm skeptical whether they use that data or not. And they say they don't, and they really shouldn't, because it's not. I think that's gaming the system, right? About taking advantage more than other search engines would be able to. So. But they do have or the data that you see in GSC, right? So they can see what's going on the search results, right? So if somebody clicks, and this is getting back to the speed test thing, right? So, or the speed and the load time. Somebody sees a bunch of results, right? So they're typing in their keyword, they're trying to find something, they see the paid stuff first, they're like, I'm not gonna, this stuff is crap, I don't like landing pages, I don't want to be marketed to. They're gonna go straight to the natural results, right? That's what I do. So they go to the first result, they click on it, and it's not loading. Whether it's their connection or the site's connection, whatever it is, but it's taking a long time to load. You think they're going to sit there and wait? They're not. They're going to close that out, and they're going to go to the next result. Now, Google sees that they're clicking the first result and then quickly clicking the second result, right? And so that's the data. So that's what I tell SEOs. It's not that, or people that ask me that question, and it's another thing is like usability with the page. Are they getting what they're looking for very quickly? So let's say the page loads very quickly, but it doesn't answer the question. Maybe it's just got like a bunch of AI crappy content, which we could just open a can of worms, right? Let's say it's got a bunch of just crappy written content. Like maybe it was written by a human, but they're not, it's all for SEO, and they just see a bunch of the same keyword over and over and over again. Are they getting what they want? No. So they're going to leave and they're going to go to the next result. And Google sees that. And yes, I will without a doubt say that is a ranking factor. So whether it's page load or usability or whatever, and that's where we get into when we talk about bounce rate. I don't think they see the bounce rate in GA. Maybe they do, but they definitely see the clicks.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Because when you look at single page apps, for example, but they just can't be fast, because despite having the sheer app bundle, they're much larger. But then going back, let's say your Salesforce example, it's that you're looking for something very specific. There is no competition for it. And if you're going to like your particular company's, page where people can like view their inventory and buy things, they're not going to click away from something else because it takes a long time to load. They have to be there because there is no alternative to this.
Exactly.
And in those cases, does it make sense for you to optimize? At a certain level, of course, a technology person, yes, the best user experience is for things to be fast and things like that. But from an end result point of view, like if you just ignore the time factor, it doesn't really matter because you have no alternative. There's no competition here. Whereas if
they're willing to wait,
space, and that data, that makes a lot of sense. Especially the part I really didn't think about, but clearly is obvious in hindsight after you mentioned it, is that Google does know like what you click on and the time between when you click on the next link in that same page. There's definitely a strong indication that maybe what you're looking for wasn't quite there, and that's completely independent of whether you have Google Analytics or any other kind of beacon that sends a signal to Google that you're spending X amount of time on these pages.
Yeah. Well, I'll give you an example. Exactly what you're saying is, so I live on an island and I have a propane tank that powers a lot of my heat and my hot water, my dryer, like a lot of things in the house, right? So my cooking, everything. And I have a leak I just discovered yesterday. And so I was out, right? So I was out of propane after like 4 months ago, or 4 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago, I loaded it, right? And it shouldn't have gone that quickly. And I have AmeriGas as I'm a AmeriGas customer. So I go to the AmeriGas website. First of all, I Google because I don't know where the login is, right? And I just want to quickly find it. So I go to Google and I say AmeriGas login. And then I see the results. Was the first thing there. I click on it. That site is so slow. It took forever to load, but I'm an AmeriGas customer. I can't contact anyone else because I have a contract with them. There is no competition, so I have to sit there and wait. So yeah, why are they in the first position? Because I clicked and I waited for that thing to load. Do they know the page load? Maybe, right? Because they're crawling and they're collecting that data. But for that keyword, clearly I'm a customer. I'm going there and I'm sitting there and waiting. So that is always going to be the first results, regardless of how slow that dang site is. Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's why you got to say it depends, right? Depends on the competition, depends on the site, depends on the keyword they're searching for, what the user intent is. Yeah. So to make a blanket statement and say paid speed affects rankings, I mean, when I'm talking to my bosses and our site's really slow, as a blanket statement, I will say, look, we need to speed some things up, right? But there's times you don't really have to worry about it too much, to be honest. Yeah.
Yep. So you mentioned AI earlier. I'm sure
Oh yeah,
you have
I
been
opened a can of
following
worms with that.
the latest drama around, various, like, you've seen a little bit of it before, but there's like a very popular post that came out recently where someone literally just looked at the keywords of their competitor, used AI to create all the pages needed for that, published it, and showed the results of here's how much traffic they receive without doing really much work as a human being.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
we also saw the fallout where Google quickly deranked them and removed them from all these results. So, are we going to see more and more of these things where it's going to be just like before, where we said like many people in the SEO industry aren't doing things in good faith. This to me is another example of that. Are we going to have to add yet one more signal on what we look out for when we're looking at like good versus bad SEO?
Yeah, I mean, that's been around for a while, right? Because you had sites like TextBroker. So I've been in this debate because they're like, AI is going to ruin content. I'm like, really? Because you already have, I don't know if you've ever used TextBroker. I use it religiously, but you have to, and it's the same thing with AI. You have to, so TextBroker is a site you can go to, and it's a crowdsourcing. It's humans writing content. Although AI has changed the game on that. I'm pretty sure those humans are using AI to write now. But it's people from all over the world. If they speak English, they can write, and they may not. And I've used it I have a vashon-mori.com site that I use for the island that provides information. And some of the people on the island have called me out for it, but I have used TextBroker to write some content. It's $20 for, I think, like 900 words. So it's a nice, easy, write a quick article. The prompt was basically, so you put it out there, you say, I need this content. And the more information you provide to the person who's writing, the better quality it'll be. So I put it out there. Hey, I need an article on things to do around Vashon Island. Well, they can, and I would like find a few references, some travel sites or whatever that have the top 10 things to do on the island. I would mention, say, go here, read about it, and then write me a list, right? And some of the stuff they don't get quite right because they're not from the island. But AI would do the same thing, right? So to say that I'm an AI proponent, so I will take this argument to the no end for people who are against AI. In fact, my own son is against AI, and we get in these debates, and he's 26 years old. You'd think a younger person wouldn't be fighting with the older person about it. You'd think it'd be the other way around. He would be in support, and I'd be like, oh, I'd be the curmudgeon. But no, it's been around forever. I mean, it's not AI specifically. I mean, AI's been around forever. It's just getting smarter and smarter, and there's cooler uses for it, right? So TextBroker is an example I use. You still have to, the more specific you write, your prompt, the better content's going to be, but it's a human doing it. Same thing with AI. The more specific your prompt, the better it's going to be. So I will give an example of something I really absolutely love is that Amazon, I was shopping for Black Friday and I noticed that, you know, where they have the reviews, I always look at reviews before I make a purchase. Like, what are people saying? You can kind of tell what are the fake reviews, which ones are the real ones. I always go to the negative because those ones are always going to be real for sure. And then see if they complain about customer service, like whatever, it's a good product. I don't care if they're going to, you know, or somebody's like, it wasn't the right size, I had to return it, like whatever, that's your own problem. But at least they had, you know, otherwise the product's good, right? So you get some good honest stuff out of there. So Amazon is actually taking, they used to do like the tag, and I think they still have it on there, the tag what's mentioned most, right? So easy to assemble, like if somebody always says that, or was broken in the box when I got it, like if that's something that's repeated over and over again, they'll have that at the top, right? Which they're using technology to surface that. Well, now they're using kind of the next step of that is they're creating an AI driven content paragraph above those reviews and saying most people say this, and it's in a cohesive, easy to understand paragraph. And I really appreciate that as a user. I also know it's AI driven, but for SEO purposes, if more e-com sites can do that, they're getting unique content on the page. It's beneficial to the user because they're summarizing what most people are saying in the reviews, so they don't have to dig through it. They're getting converted faster, win-win for everybody, right? So there's a good positive use of AI. But I'll find more and I'll preach the positive of AI to no end. It just needs to be curbed. It needs to be curbed. It needs to be controlled. And it can be bad, but so can a lot of SEO can be bad too, right?
Yep. No, like you mentioned, like the content farming sites have been there forever, where just, you know, write about, and you can spot them from a mile away as well. So it's like bulleted list, no images, no, you know, just you see ads everywhere. Like, yeah, I'm pretty sure this is not exactly the most authoritative source on it, but I did click on it, so kudos to them. They managed to figure out how to trick, you know, a semi-skeptical person of like being wary of like scammy links to be able to use it. So yeah, it's a constant battle where whatever techniques we figure out right now, the bad actors will evolve. So we need to always keep
there'll always be. Yeah. And it's not AI doing it, it's the people that are behind the use of the AI. But that's always, that's just been there, it's just to a whole new level. But I'll tell you this, if somebody copied my website and they beat me in rankings, there's something that I'm doing wrong.
Yeah.
It's not them. Yeah, sure. You know, oh crap, you know, shame on them for getting in the first position for everything. Well, what did they do that I didn't do that they're getting better rankings? And that's, you know, that gets down to like companies need to be paying attention to SEO. If somebody can come in and scrub your site, if Nordstrom's were to be completely copied one for one and AI written content, and somebody did a better job than Nordstrom's and they outranked them, and it's an affiliate site that Nordstrom now has to pay to sell their products, you know, shame on Nordstrom for not having a good SEO team to know what they're doing, to not allow, it's so what? Scrub the site. Go ahead, scrub the site, create a copy. But, you know, if you're outranking that other site, that other site needs to get their not together.
That makes sense. That's very reasonable. So you mentioned that, you know, a lot of people in the SEO industry are you know, aren't doing it for the right reasons. They are bad actors and scammers and things like that. So let's say I'm a company and I'm trying to find a good SEO consultant, you know, and you're busy. You know, the first one they were like, let me talk to Jen and see if it's available. You know, you're busy. What should I look out for? What should they look out for when trying to hire a high quality SEO person to help them?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because you know, one of the common denominators, and you'll find these, like, here's the checklist, right? One is if they say they have a relationship with Google, don't do that. I've seen on LinkedIn, some bad SEOs will actually say they work for Google, which they don't, right? They'll be like, Google's my employer. And it's like, yeah, I mean, that's really bad stuff. I mean, anyone should hopefully be able to. So any affiliation with Google, I've even seen SEOs that used to work as the paid search account managers, right? Which don't even really know paid search all that well. They're there. I mean, they come off the street. they don't have a lot of experience. You know, some of the ones that have been there 5-10 years really, really know their stuff. And I've known a few that have gone up through the rankings and are, you know, are directors of teams at Google. But anyway, so they're, oh, my Google Pixel's like, what do you want? Use that between that and Alexa. This one's named a different name, so things start really, what do you want? But anyways, so what was I saying? Yeah, my Alexa's
A
downstairs.
lot of these individuals would be saying that they're actually paid search at, you know, an advertisement.
Oh yeah, that's where I was at. Yeah, so that's one thing to look for if they have any affiliation. Now I have relationships with the DevRel team at Google that still does not. So I don't know if you've seen the SEO Goddess homepage, but Martin Split and I had a conversation that Google actually did the whole, like, recorded the whole conversation and posted it on their website. You know, I don't even say I have a relationship with them because I mean, and even then, that's the DevRel team. They don't, even John Mueller, he's DevRel. He kind of knows Google and he can give you some answers, but he's still broad. He can't give you like exactly, you know, if somebody goes to him and says, why isn't my website ranking? He's like, well, here's your checklist, right? Go through it, which is everybody. But yeah, so nobody should have a relationship to Google. That's number one, and that should be obvious, but it's not always. If anyone recommends, but I've had, see, here's the thing, is I've had business owners recommend spammy stuff. So I would say if any SEO recommends something that is going to trick Google and get you rankings quickly, but I've been in conversations as a consultant where business owners will be like, you know, oh, our design team did these beautiful pages and it doesn't have a lot of text on the page. So can't we just put our keywords in the alt text of all the images? Or why can't we just do, you know, same color text on the same color background? In 2023, they have actually said those things to me. No, that's tricking the search engines, right? So my answer is, you know, if it's an image heavy page and it is what's best for the user and giving them what they want, then just leave it alone and let's see if Google ranks. And if not, let's maybe do some outreach and get some link building done to it, or let's write some blog posts that have content that talk about the page and then send people there, right? Let's not just muddy it up, but a bunch of text just because you need it. So it's always what's best for the user. So if they're not, I guess that's what it boils down to is, you know, if they're not doing what's best for the user and giving you the answers that gives a good user experience. And if they want a trick, those are the easy ones. If something sounds fishy, don't go for it. But like I said, I've had business owners that are like, I want you to do this. And I'm like, I'm not gonna, that's just not how I roll, right? Like,
yeah.
I just don't do things that way. I do for my own sites to test things. I totally do black hat stuff just to see if I can get away with it. But that's my own testing websites. And if it fails, I just go on and create a new one.
So you mentioned, you know, just like there's no such thing as a get rich quick scheme, there's probably no such thing as like rank quickly kind of a solution as well. So what is the average time frame someone should expect when they engage with a high quality SEO individual to start seeing results showing up in Google?
Well, you'll see results right away, right? Okay. You should. If you create a page and that page isn't showing up right away, then something's wrong. In fact, that happened at GitHub. They created a series of pages. And before I started, the consultant helped them and it was brilliant. The consultant did a great job. He worked with the teams to write really good quality content, went on the site. The downside to it was they didn't think to link to the page. So it was an orphaned page. And so it wasn't ranking. And they said, oh, at this point, it's been, you know, a month and a half. How come it's not ranking? You should see something. You should see something. If it's not on the 5th, 6th page down, it should be something, right? But if you're not seeing anything, that's bad. So, but you should, like the day that it's launched, you should see something. Or at least 2 or 3 days after. And then you have to remember that there's, and this is something that SEOs try to remind people, you know, there's crawling, indexing, and ranking, right? So first is crawling. Yeah. If you're not seeing anything, right, you should see it crawled. If it's not crawled, then something's wrong, right? So then you got to go back to the drawing board. If it's crawled but not indexed, then why isn't Google indexing it? What is going on? So you got to figure out and it's usually a technical thing, right? So this is where that whole like left brain development background that I have really comes into handy. Or go to your engineering team and be like, hey, it's crawled but not indexed. Like, what's going on here? Help me understand. Crawled, indexed, and not ranked. Something seriously wrong, right? What did you do? It should rank. If it's not on the 100th page, like, it should be somewhere, literally immediately. Now there is a algorithm or patent. I don't know if Google named it this, but rank transition. I don't know if you've seen me share that article. I wrote it years ago. I reference it often in every job I have, every time I'm working with clients. But if you Google the word rank transition, there's not just my article, there's several articles written about it. There's a Google patent that says, and this is to fight the spammers, right? So what a spammer will do, because you can see results right away, you should, they'll say, okay, where am I ranking? They'll launch a page. 2 days later, they're like, okay, I'm on the 5th page. So for this thing, so I'm going to make changes and try to get up higher. Okay, I moved to the 4th page. So I'm going to make, and so like every 2-3 days, they're constantly making adjustments. And they'll be like, oh, I'm on the 1st page. Oh, wait, the next day I'm on the 3rd page. Like, what's going on? And keep making changes. So what rank transition does for a period of 90 days, this is why SEOs say you won't see results for 90 days. It's literally for a period of 90 days, rank transition gives you your position. So this is where you're going to be. You launch your page, your content, Google says, okay, here you are. Let's say you get to be in the 5th position because it's a new page. They're like, you did great. Your competition, we're going to put you in the 5th position. That's where you're holding. Now, rank transition basically randomizes your position for 90 days. And every time you do an update, it starts the clock over again. So it basically is to compete with the spammers that they're like constantly making. So if you're constantly making changes, you're never going to see good results. You're going to be randomized forever. But if you, so this is what I tell my clients and bosses where I work. Oh, love. This is what I tell them is we're going to see our position right away. And then we just want to let it sit for 90 days. And then where we are in 90 days, we can say, this is where we're at, and we could make adjustments. There are times where I will say, let's give it like a week, and then I'll take kind of the average position because it randomizes. I'll be like, we're probably going to be in a sweet spot in here, but at least we're showing up. We can probably make some adjustments, but you just have to understand that you are going to get randomized. So let's say it's randomizing on the 5th page, but it's always like the top or bottom of 5th page. Well, my best guess, it could just be random, right? But my best guess is it's probably on the 5th page. So let's do some tweaks, or maybe we could do some link building to just sort of like give it a little boost and see if we can get it up. But after that night, but don't touch the page, right? And so then after that 90 days, being like, here it is. So there's some pages I say keep testing, playing around, or when I do tests at big companies and you have masses of chunks of pages and data to work with, I'll say, let's do like local. Let's just do Washington State, and let's do these 20 pages in Washington State and do this test and then see where it lands. And then, okay, we see where it lands, and don't touch that for 90 days. And let's be like, okay, it landed on, let's say, the 4th page, right? And it's like randomizing. Then I'll say, let's do Oregon next, and let's take this, but let's go the next level and see where it's at, and just kind of keep playing. But 90 days is really, it's a good safe bet. Wait till 90 days, don't touch the page. Or, if you want to keep playing, take that risk. Keep rolling the dice.
You mentioned link building, a few number of times so far. What is link building? What is an effective way to do it? And I'll give you some context as well. I run a popular forum that goes along with my technical content. So people post content and things like that. 90% of some of the new content I get is people just writing these articles and putting a link in the middle of it as a way of link building. And they're spammers. It's a constant, battle to not have them be there. And even though I have like the rel no follow by default added to these things, it doesn't deter them in any way, shape, or form.
And that's not going to
Whereas,
do anything anyways. Google still looks at it like,
yeah, exactly. But I've seen great examples of link building as well. And so I'm almost like kind of curious to know, because I'm pretty sure the audience right now, they probably have experiences both of my kind, where they just see like people spamming any kind of a comment field or submission form, anything like where their content gets up on the page, and they've seen good examples of it. So what is a good example of link building?
Yeah, I get the same thing because my Vashon Mori, I have all local businesses, and they're only supposed to be in Vashon, and I get businesses from like San Francisco, and they're like, insurance companies or the Ray-Ban business, like, anyways, yeah. So I get you, and it's totally irrelevant. No, that's bad. Those people are doing those links. It's just horrible, right? Because it has nothing to do with it. Now, if they were to talk about travel, and something in the Seattle area might be relevant enough to Vashon to where, yeah, sure, let's throw it on there. But no, it's just so out there. No, it should be, so a link should be, look as natural as possible, right? So I used to say no link building because I've worked for big brands, don't need to do any link building, right? Nordstrom, there's a lot of fashion bloggers, a lot of influencers out there, Instagram, social media, Pinterest. They're going to be creating content with links back to pages. So you don't have to worry about it. When the blog post goes up, they're going to just like love it up and, talk about it and link back to it all the time. So we never really had to worry about anything. Same with Groupon, right? Same thing would happen there. Usedcars.com, same thing would happen there. When I was at GitHub, we were finding that we actually had to do link building. And how do you do link building for GitHub? Well, there's an entire DevRel team for GitHub. So I started tapping into them a little bit more. The first one I did, which was probably really pushing, is very gray, is I wrote an article on Search Engine Journal, and I talked about using GitHub for SEO in GitHub, right? So how, and then I did this is that whole like, what is Git content that was created, and there was no internal link. I actually created an external link, and I said, what is Git? And did a little explanation in that article. Now Search Engine Journal is probably going to take it down. But I linked to, but it's very relevant. It was usable content. So this was probably my gray area. Search Engine Land does not let me link externally ever. When I write for them, Search Engine Journal is a little bit more flexible on those things. Plus it's GitHub, right? It's a legit, reputable source. So linking to that, and like I said, that content was very valuable to the user. So it was totally, I don't know if you can find it, but we ended up putting it in the footer of the github.com site. So hopefully it's still there. They didn't take it out. But you can find it. Anyways, so those are ways to do it. But that's the only time I really had to do it. Anytime GitHub created new content, there's a whole thing around that. Because every time a new subdirectory was created, or a new profile on GitHub, somebody new was creating something, a new subdirectory was created. And so when we would create content from a marketing perspective, we'd put it under a subdirectory under the github.com, and Google was like, whoa, we're not sure if that's legit. And so you have to have all of those signals in place. So you have to have a link from the website. You have to have a link from somewhere else before Google would count that as legit. And so I had to do link building in that case. But yeah, my biggest, I will give you the blanket statement of, if you're going to do link building, I hate the word because it is always associated with spam, right? Commenting on blog posts or submitting to forums that, whatever, with content's not relevant. But link building should be, it should be done as natural as possible, right? So DevRel teams, or if you have influencers that you work with, PR, if you're in a big company, I always work at the PR team and being like, hey, where do you, like, if there's a new product launch, like GitHub was launching Copilot, so I worked with the PR team to get links back, right? Or at least the main Copilot page talked about that the marketing that I had nothing to do with, right? It wasn't an SEO created page, but I would like talk to them. And so just try to encourage links to happen naturally. But sometimes you have to, as an SEO, this is where I say I get a little gray, but do it in a relevant way. Don't be spamming. So I kind of want to like reach out to those SEOs that are spamming my sites and be like, this is not going to get you anywhere. Right? Like I want to have those conversations, but I know it's not going to work because they're not going to listen to me because they don't think I know what I'm talking about. But yeah, no, it's tricky, but
Yes. And so if you had to give any advice for someone who wants to get into the SEO business, who wants to become an SEO specialist, what would your number one advice be?
don't do it. I've actually had people ask me that often. They're like, I want to do what you do. And I'm like, okay, why? First of all, why? Why do you want to do this? If their answer is I want to make money, this is not a way to make money. SEO is not, I mean, yeah, you might make good money as opposed to like I went from working in pet stores to working, and I went from a shoe store making the 30,000 a year to going to work for that agency at 30,000 a year, but I was making the same amount of money as I was managing a shoe pavilion. So, and it was the same hours. In fact, it was more hours. I worked till late at night. So, the thing is that SEO is good to have as a skill. I mean, if you're passionate about it, I'm passionate about it. I'm odd. It's an odd thing. And those of us who, for some weird reason, we like a challenge. I like a challenge. I like, the rules are constantly changing. I mean, I'm in this 26 years and it's so different from where it was in the beginning. Yeah, I'm doing the same thing. And I worked for other companies, but the landscape constantly changes, and that's what I love about it. But make sure if you're going to do it, get into it for the right reasons. Understand. Here's the thing that I wish I had known when I started this career. I had career goal aspirations to work for a big corporation and to be a director in a big corporation someday. And 26 years later, I know I have really good experience. I have managed teams. I know strategy. I could be a director title, but companies just don't hire directors of SEO. And when they do, I don't think they quite understand what they're wanting from those directors. And so, if you want to have career aspirations to someday be like a VP of growth, SEO is not the path to go. You can start in SEO, but if you're in SEO, look to other ways, like a product manager, product marketing, project manager. Growth is a good place to go because there's a lot of VPs of growth. That's a title that's coming through. But learn other aspects of marketing, learn email marketing, learn nurturing programs. If you're in B2B, learn product marketing, know how to manage a project, know how to work with people, and then you can grow in your career. But SEO is not a place to grow in your career. It's a good place to make money. You want to make money, you want to be a consultant, you want to make lots of money, you can make lots of money as a consultant if you're doing it legit. And a lot of people have had very lucrative, amazing careers that do consulting or start their own agency or went from agency to working in-house. So there are a few VP roles because I have posted on LinkedIn that there's just no directors of SEO and no VPs of SEO. And then I get bombarded with a few that say, but I'm a VP. And I'm like, yeah, at an agency or, at a startup.
Yeah.
But enterprise, big corporations just don't hire. Yeah. Like GitHub didn't backfill my position. There's no SEO work. I don't think there is. I think there might be. I think that one point I saw they were hiring like a strategist. Mm-hmm. That's, but I was a manager. So I think they might have somebody underneath like that level, but no, they just don't have. And I was an individual contributor at GitHub. There was not a big old team, right? So, but yeah, I mean, it's just get into it for the right reasons. And if you're getting into SEO, the way to start is to, circling back to what we talked about in the beginning, learn the content aspects of it. Usability is big, like understand what makes a good user experience if you understand that. And then on the technical side, you should know technical side. You don't have to be a technical expert. There are technical SEOs. There's companies that are hiring specifically technical SEOs now, which I'm glad they're doing that, that work with engineers. So if you have like an engineering background, you want to get into SEO, then go for it. But and be specific. But you should, even if you're doing content, you should know enough, right, to like know what a meta tag is. There's an argument I get into, and this drives me nuts. If you can know that there's a title and description, the title is not a meta tag, right? It's an element tag. And I got people arguing to me, no, Ed, and I believe, please do not call yourself an SEO if you do not know the difference between what a meta tag is, what metadata is, and anything. There's metadata on images, right? So you have to understand what that is versus,
Well, Jenn, it was fantastic chatting with you. If people want to learn more about you, where should they go? I'll make sure those links are in the description as well, but I also just want to hear from you directly.
Oh, I appreciate it. SEOgoddess.com. That's got all of my info. I do consulting here and there. And I love a good challenge. So yeah, anyone, and I mentor too. So, and I don't charge anything for mentoring. I do charge for consulting. But yeah, just reach out to me there. And I have a Calendly link because I used to have a form and I got spammed like crazy. And so now there's just a Calendly link. So if you would like to talk to me, schedule time with me. It's in there. We'll have 30 minutes and let's just talk. Yeah.
Perfect. Jenn, thanks again. And we'll catch up again soon.
Yeah. Thank you so much.